No community comments this morning. It's not real. It's not real big. It's about this big. So that it's not a big pot. That's for sure. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. I just like to put a plug in. Man, these early board meetings, I like them. So just throwing that out there for the group moving forward. Um, I'm pretty new to education. I am a Serrano graduate, class of 2000. My dad also a Snowline student. Our family's been up here since the early 70s. Really proud to be in this community. I also have two kids at Pinion Hills Elementary, grade 3 and 5. So right out of high school, I did not have a plan, Mr. Miller. So I was kind of going all over the place. Did undergrad at Cal Poly Pomona. Also went through the fire academy. I'm an EMT. I was a paid call fireman for San Bernardino County right out of high school. Worked for the Forest Service and BLM. I was on a helicopter. I was on a helishot crew for about 8 years, and then got an opportunity to go to work full time for Mountain High Ski Resort. So I was their risk manager and ski patrol director for several years, and in 2015 left there and as their vice president of operations, and came to Snowline as our risk manager and PIO. So I've been here since 2015. I love this community more than anything, to be quite honest. I love this place. I love that my students are part of the Snowline District. My family, my brother, we're all here in this community. So it's really, really special place for me. As far as my legacy, I always like to tell people in real life, I'm a mountaineer, I'm an alpine climber. I just do this to climb mountains. So as a mountaineer, we kind of have a motto, right? We always want to leave a place better than we found it. So if that means we're picking up an extra piece of trash as we're walking off the trail, or we're providing services, or we were down in Africa a few years ago. We brought a bunch of solar panels down to that group as we were climbing. So we always want to leave a place better than we found it, and that's kind of my legacy here. Whatever that is. Whether it's finance, whether it's supporting students with programs, it's doing community outreach and supporting our community. I just want to leave it better than I found it. So thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
format, which a lot of districts do, and it's going to differ from district to district, and you do what works for you and what's most comfortable for you. But typically, the board president announces the agenda item. The president then calls upon the superintendent to introduce the item. President asks for a motion and then a second, and then opens the item for discussion. If comment cards have been submitted, president invites members of the public to comment. And at the conclusion of discussion, or at his or her discretion, the president then calls for the vote. For the decision-making process, typically a recommendation is initiated by the superintendent, or the superintendent is asked by the board from previous discussions, or perhaps a discussion at a board meeting, to bring forth the recommendation. Criteria for superintendent recommendations and board decisions, which is so important that when we make recommendations and board decisions, there are particular criteria that we have to keep in mind. And that is there going to be, and what will the impact, or what might that impact in students, parents, and staff be? Is there a fiscal impact? I know your business services guy is going to appreciate that. Okay, what's the fiscal impact? Sounds like a great idea, but it's going to cost money to do it. What's the fiscal impact? What's the legality of doing it? Is it within our purview? Is it within Ed Code? Are there guidelines and directions from state and federal laws and regulations that we need to follow? And then the important thing is, once the decision is made by the board, is that everyone owns the decision. And oftentimes this can become a disruptive or a divisive factor for boards, and that there might be someone who feels very strongly about going a different direction. However, the board as a collective team made the decision to go a different direction. The important thing is, although one may not agree with the decision that was made by the board, the important thing is, okay, this is the decision that the board made, and this is what I stand by. So it's important that as a team, that everyone owns the decision.
And publicly supports it, even though they may have been on a losing side on a vote.
Absolutely.
And that's what great boards do.
Common courtesy. Ryan, I know you know this. Superintendent, don't blindside your board. Keep them informed. And I know you do a good job of that. But there are districts out there that doesn't happen, and it causes mistrust. It causes divisiveness. So don't blindside your board. Keep them informed. Superintendent board members do not surprise one another at a public meeting. No one gains from embarrassing the other. It only harms children, and it creates also divisiveness. And it also breaks down that culture of trust that we talked about earlier. And board members do not individually give direction to the superintendent. Only the board as a body has that authority. And again, we're working with a number of districts, and where board members feel as though they need to manage and give direction to the superintendent, that creates trouble, that creates divisiveness, and it also breaks down the culture of trust. The important thing to remember is that if a direction is given to the superintendent, only the board as a body has that authority.
I would like to address the blindsiding issue, in that if a board member has a question concerning an agenda item, it's often good practice to meet with the superintendent in advance of the meeting so that you can get clarification. And you can give him a heads up and say, okay, I'm going to ask you this question again in public session. But just so that you are receiving and well informed of the information from the superintendent in advance of the meeting, that's often helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a couple of board members in Tustin. They were a great board, and they would call in, and they were really good about asking all their questions before the board meetings. And some would say, that's important for the community to hear. So I'm gonna ask you that again when we talk about this, and I want you to give that same answer, because I think the community needs to hear that. And so as long as I knew that was coming, that was great. I mean, that turned out to be a very positive thing, but it was always done in that way. and I was never blindsided by them just asking me, because we televised our meetings, and it was, it could be embarrassing when you're asked and you're not prepared to
Absolutely.
to answer and get caught that way. So be good about that, because it really makes a difference for a superintendent.
Absolutely. And it also shows that you're together as a team. I thank you for sharing that, Dick, because I as a superintendent, I know there were times when I had board members call me that says, we've got this item on the agenda. I don't know that I agree with it, and I'm going to be asking some questions, and I wanted you to know about it. And here's why I'm going to bring it up. That way, when the issue came up, I knew what to expect. I didn't feel blindsided. I didn't feel as though there was something, a second agenda. I knew behind the scenes what was going on, and that's very important to do. Any other comments by anybody?
Mitch, great comments for sure. I just I saw a comment by our clerk, and that's Marcus Hernandez, who said that Nathan's connection just dropped off. So
Oh no. Okay.
okay, we might give him just a moment to get right back in here.
Ryan, we're
It looks
There
like
he
he's-
goes. He
Looks
joined.
like he's coming right back in right now, Mitch.
I was going to say we're making pretty good ground. Do you want to take a 5-minute break? Would that be okay, or do you want to just keep going?
I mean, that's a great question. I see a couple heads nodding. President Behringer, what do you think about that? If we take a quick pause.
Let's see a consensus.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I lost my connection. I had to run and change rooms for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay. Thumbs up if you'd like a break for 5 minutes.
I don't care. Oh, great. Okay.
Thumbs up if you'd like a break for 2 minutes, because I'm not seeing a consensus.
Here you go. This is our
Okay. Let's do a 2-minute break, and we'll see you in a minute then.
Okay, very good. And we'll pick back up real quickly with communication. So let's take a 2-minute break. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mitch. And Mitch, real quickly, how do you feel on the time? I was looking forward. It seems like you and Dick really got us to a good place here, I think.
I think so. I just don't want to go too fast, but you've got your board's really together, and they're following along, and you've done this with your current board. I think we're making great time. I just don't want to go so fast that it doesn't become as meaningful as it could be. I'm having trouble reading the audience because I don't have any, I can't see anybody. All I can do is hear. All I can see is the PowerPoint and hear you. If I need to slow down, there's a question, please jump in.
No, you got it. I sure will. I've been watching that for you. I think you're doing really well, honestly. And then just to add to that, Mitch, I think what I'm going to do, even to allow you and Dick to even slow and pace yourselves as you wish, is I think it's 4 and 5. I got to get the numbers down correctly. Yeah, 4 and 5 for me.
Yes.
I'm gonna, if you will, mash them together. I think they go together nicely.
Yes. That's why they're on the same slide. So you can do them together.
Perfect.
And then the other question I had is, I'm going to really quickly do this communication, and then I think you're going to need to take back. I'm going to have to get out of the PowerPoint so that you can put it up on the agenda, and then I'm going to have to come back. So there may be some turnover time, just a little bit in between screen sharing. But once I finish this communication, which will be quick, then you'll need to go back on and put up your board meeting agenda.
Right? Yeah, that's perfect there, Mitch. Yeah, thanks. So I think we can make that work well. Alan actually is going to do it for me. That's why I had asked you back in the day. I like it when Alan runs it for me, because then I can see the crowd, right?
Yes.
And so Alan will put up that agenda. Thanks, Alan. And then, like I said, I'll mash those together, because I think, as you said it very well, they go well nicely.
Yeah. Now, since I can't see what you see, are you able to still see the communication PowerPoint, or when you put up over?
We can see it.
The other one.
Yeah. So we're seeing it right now. You're talking about right now. Yeah, we've got that right now, Mitch. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Very good.
We'll wait for you to finish that piece for sure.
Okay. All right. Okay. 1-minute break. I'll be right back.
Is Dennis in the house? Where's Mr. Z? Maybe he's taking a break. I was just looking for an update, Ryan. Do you know how things are going? He looks well.
Yeah, oh, here he is. He's walking right back in now. There we go. Yeah, he's we're all doing well. We're just battling. I think I can speak on behalf of him, Christina. We are battling community spread. I had a conversation with Corin Porter early this morning. I love it. I love that he gives me time to do that. And he was just talking about, but he used his words. I haven't heard him say this yet. He said, in San Bernardino County, Ryan, including Snowline, the community spread is, and he used a firefighting term there, Nathan. He says, much like when they say the firefighting, fire weather is extreme and excessive, that's exactly what community spread is right now, per the director of the, San Bernardino County Department of Public Health, Corin Porter. So he said
That's
it's just
danger zone.
Well, exactly. And that was kind of the parallel he was bringing with Nathan's profession, right? Is he said it's just off the charts right now, not just in our district, but elsewhere. And we're seeing those effects.
I saw your message. So that was until January 17th?
The date's the 19th there, Christina. And I won't take all our time here other than to say just real quickly that looking to get away from the holidays. It's not lost on anyone, right, that the holidays are really troublesome. And honestly, he said they're just beginning to see the effects of Thanksgiving right now in his department, and sees Christmas and New Year's being even worse. So that 19th is a design in that regard to try to get almost 3 weeks separation. And his quick answer on that was he thinks there might be a downturn by that stage, but sees it only climbing between now and then.
Okay, well, I support that move, and thank you for the message.
Yeah, sure. It was hard to do, but yeah, thank you.
I see Dr. Hovey has returned, so we can reconvene.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This last section talks about communication, and I think you are already so very good at doing this. But the important thing is you can't overestimate the importance of communicate. Information given to any board member is given to all board members. Stay within the boundaries of the Brown Act, which Dick's going to go. We're going to do a sort of a quick overview of the Brown Act after Ryan goes over the agenda and preparation of the agenda for Snowline. But it's important to stay within the boundaries of the Brown Act. When you talk about things that come up, like you just got done talking about the COVID-19, who are your spokesperson for the district? Well, when you talk about who represents the district, it's in the following order: the superintendent or his or her designee, board president, if no superintendent or designee. And then spokesperson for the board is the board president or any board member that's been designated by the board. So again, the importance of communication is so very important. I think what happens is when we don't communicate, things get lost in the translation. So it's important that we communicate, we talk with each other, we're honest with each other, and that we work together. And that can only happen by communicating and communicating often. And I know, Ryan, you do that with your board. You get information out to them. And when you send information out, it's not just sent to one board member, but it's given to all board members. And that's important because it reinforces the concept of we're a team and we all need to have the same information.
Yeah, and it builds trust.
Absolutely.
That's right. No favorites, building trust. And my goal was always communicating with the board so that they never, would go into Stater Brothers and have somebody ask them a question about something that happened at one of the schools that they knew nothing about.
Yes.
I wanted them to be able to say, oh, yeah, we know about that. Superintendent's on it. They're taking care of it. That's just huge for a board member.
Absolutely. Ryan, I think you're up. You're going to talk about how the work that you do to prepare and review for Snowline board meetings and then also you're going to take a few minutes to review the upcoming agenda for December 15th. I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint, and I don't know what that looks like to you. But hey, now I can see everybody. Boy, that's a lot better. I can see everyone now. I've been blinded. I've been only being able to stare at that PowerPoint. So it's great to see faces and smiles on your faces. So Ryan, why don't you go ahead and share and talk a little bit about how you prepare the important things, particularly for your new board members, about what it takes to put together an agenda. There's a method to the madness for the agenda and the timelines and dates. And then we're going to go from there into the Brown Act that Dick will cover right after that. So go ahead, Ryan. It's all on your shoulders now.
Thanks so much, Mitch. I appreciate that. Mitch, if you're just able to make a not share or no longer share your screen, and then you'll be back with us all the way. I can just vouch for everyone, Mitch. I never saw anything but positive faces the whole time. No one made bad faces.
Thank you. Okay, now how do I do that, Ryan? I'm not familiar with this format. Do I go to options again?
Right now, it should say that, Mitch, that you're presenting. So if you go back down to that button, Mitch, on the bottom there.
To the right? No. Oh, yes, right here.
Yeah, the bottom right. Does it say that Mitch Hovey is presenting?
Not presenting. There we go.
There you go, Mitch. Perfect. Yeah. And again, Mitch, and I want to speak on his behalf just real quickly. He is a Zoom guy and he's masterful in that setting. This is his first time, I think, with Google Meet. So thanks for working with us and doing so well up until this point. You said it very well, Mitch. We've got 2 items on our agenda. If you're following along, it's numbers 4 and 5. I think they go together very, very nicely. It's credit to Mitch and Dick for putting them that way. I'll in effect mash them together, but not so much so hopefully for Daniel and Nathan, so that you get a feeling for when we talk about this process, how do you as a singular board member get ready to then become that team when you come together for the second part in number 5, the board meeting itself. So it's been said before, ultimately when we talk about the board meeting agenda, Nancy Stapp, our executive assistant to the superintendent, she is and always will be, the purveyor of all that is needed and necessary. Excuse me, needed and necessary for this process. Nance, can you just start while I get a drink here and talk about our upcoming agenda here? Excuse me, from a process standpoint. Excuse me.
Certainly, Ryan. So the process for an agenda for your meetings is put together by me. I send out an email to all of the administrators and site secretaries, letting them know when I will be collecting the agenda items by. And then I start building the agenda. The agenda covers, as you see on the one that you have today, this one is very simple. Anytime we have a special meeting or study session, it's just a simple format. The one that we will be sending to you today after this meeting is completed, I will post the agenda for the meeting on December 15th. I always have to post the agenda prior to the meeting. I have a 72-hour deadline there that it has to be posted under the Brown Act 72 hours prior to the meeting. So you will receive the agenda. We always try for Thursday afternoon, depending on what we have going on. Otherwise, you will see it Friday morning. And Ryan is usually good about sending out a message to you if it's going to be late. Ryan, do you want to have Alan share the screen? And then you can...
That would be wonderful, Nancy. And thanks for stepping in there as I choked on my own self there, and I'm back in action now. So thanks for doing that in an impromptu fashion. And before I go any further, Kenny Funk, one of our outstanding board members, just like the other 2 here are here already. We've got our 3rd. Thanks, Kenny, for making time in your busy schedule to take part in this supportive effort to bring up our new board members here. Welcome, Kenny. So with
Thank you.
Sorry, Kenny, for talking over. Yeah, you're certainly welcome. We appreciate seeing you. So again, going from the preparation stage to the actual agenda, this is the upcoming agenda you can see on December 15th. And I just want to say this, take a quick pause. to Nathan and to Daniel. Preparation, I will tell you, we at the administrative side, we do a lot of preparation. Nancy does the most of it. But the bottom line is the best perspectives from Christina and from Marcus and from Kenny. So I'm going to take a quick pause and just say to either, to any of you, of the three of you, would you just share your processes, because they're great examples of board members who come prepared to the meeting, and they come prepared as an individual. And I say that, it was mentioned earlier, I should take a quick moment and a pause to say that we used to be an at-large district. We are now by trustee area. And what a great time it is for us to be able to demonstrate truly what together is, because you do represent your area, but we do come together as an overall board here. And I think these three board members have done that well. And can any of you just step up and just talk about your preparation, because you do it well. And I would just love for your insight to be passed along to Nathan and Daniel.
I'll go ahead and start if that's all right. I meet on a weekly basis with Dr. Holman, and so I am abreast of topical issues and familiar with what's going on to the agenda. And when there are informational items or actionable items on the agenda for which I have questions, I will address Dr. Holman. Additionally, he will indicate you might want to get in touch with Mr. Miller or Mr. Zimmerman, in which case, whenever I email a staff member with an agenda question, I always CC Dr. Holman on that as well. And then frequently the response that is given to me is shared with the board at large. But I'm always reading the agenda the day that I receive it, and all of the attachments. It's just really important and helps to get us through the agenda in open session. But the point was well taken that Mr. Bray brought up, in that sometimes we have questions that the public should hear those responses. And so giving a heads up to Dr. Holman or whoever's giving you that information, saying, I will be asking this in public session so that the public can hear it, that's an excellent idea. And that's all I have.
Yeah, so appreciate that, Christina. Marcus and or Kenny. Marcus, it looks like you have your microphone up. Can you share some advice?
Yeah, absolutely. In contrast to Christina, I do not meet weekly with Ryan. I do, if there's something of particular interest that I feel needs discussed. We have met in person in the past, though not as of late. And my method of going through the agenda is often mixed because I'm a full-time employee. I've got a lot of responsibilities that extend past a normal workday. I get to it as I can and as quickly as I can. Oftentimes, as soon as the agenda comes out, I know I have some time and I will start getting the information, start reading through. I think we all see that there are common items that come up monthly, and they require a little less time to review than some of the special items that come up. But review items individually and then fire off those emails to the appropriate person, always copying Dr. Holman if he's not the intended respondent that I'm looking for. And it's just a matter of doing it at your own pace where you can digest the information, because sometimes, especially when we get that LCAP information, it is lengthy and it requires a lot of time. And sometimes that 3 or 4 days just isn't quite enough. So, I've come to my meetings and apologize that I had not completed the entire read, because after 200 pages, it's like, I just didn't get through it. So that's my method. It's proven well so far. I don't like coming without all the information gone through, but it happens. And Usually those are the informational pieces that we may not be making a decision on that night anyway, so it's not as big of an impact. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that.
So appreciate that, Marcus. And then Kenny, he has been a board member, I'll just say just real quick in an introduction, in 2 different states, in fact, in Colorado and in California. So brings a powerful perspective. Again, welcome, Kenny. Thank you. Your thoughts you'd share?
Yeah, I use a triage method. When I get the information, I read it all through, and some of it is, I know we're going to discuss it in closed session. And so I make notes and I don't respond. I was like, okay, I'll just see how this plays out. Some I do respond to or even instigate. All right, so I know this is coming. What should I be prepared for? Or much like Marcus, I need more information on this. And then there's also that other factor, the public factor, that you're going to be at a football game or a basketball game, or you're going to get an email from the public. And is that just hey, I just want to introduce myself? And I've gotten some that this needs a bigger attention. So really the trick of triage, just knowing, like, you don't have to answer every question every time in full length. That's not your job. Some of them you have to give a lot of attention to, and some of them are just passing information that's important for you to know to answer questions. And some of them, you're going to get into a discussion with your fellow board members of the administration with. So my advice is to read it all, make notes on the stuff that you're going to be involved in, and then the other stuff, keep at bay. You can get overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that you're going to get. And you'll learn in time. I would say by the 3rd or 4th month, you'll realize it's not drinking from a fire hose. All right. You're going to get information at that pace, but you don't have to answer all those questions. You have an excellent team of administrators who can answer questions for you. And you have fellow board members who are going to say, we've been there. Here's a perspective. And so reach out to them. That'd be my advice.
Great.
Yeah, just great advice on all fronts. Thank all 3 of you. And so to Daniel and Nathan, any questions before I move on to the specifics of what an agenda will look like and give you some details there? But any questions of our 3 board members? Just super advice, in my opinion. Oh, Nathan, you looking? Yeah, there we go. Thanks.
I got you. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Hey, what are the secret closed meetings that everyone wants to know about?
Secret.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of research, believe it or not, before I jumped into this thing. So I'm scouring the internet because basically that's the only form like an outsider can pull information down from. So I'm reading all the agendas from the board meetings, and I attended all the board meetings that I could attend. And there was, from the outside looking in, there's not that much available information out there. So I'm wondering about, the closed meetings, and I know I'm going to figure it out, and we're going to go through the meetings, but I guess it is what it is. You talk about things that don't need to be in the public, or
No,
They talk about how to take over the world, usually.
okay.
Well, there's very few things that you actually can talk about in a closed session, and I'll go over those when I go through the Brown Act. They're all contained in the Brown Act.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great question, though, Nathan. And that's a great segue, Nathan, your question, because as we see what Alan's displaying on the screen, and thank you so very much, Alan. Nancy, thanks for your introduction, as I choked on my own saliva, I think, or something like that. So thank you for bearing with me there. So this would be the agenda for the upcoming meeting on Tuesday. It's a special, I won't use that term. I'll be careful. We're in a special meeting now, but it's a really unique board meeting because oath of office will be in there here too. And this is a lot of fun to be able to share with our 2 new board members. But just from top to bottom real quickly, at 5 o'clock, and Nathan, you had referenced this, we have closed session. We conduct it before our open session. So our closed session starts at 5 o'clock with open session at 6. And so what's called to order in 2 different instances is each of the meetings. And so the president, Christina Behringer, will call to order the closed session at 5 o'clock. In this time, of course, we're meeting remotely like we are right now. Community comments just for closed session items are then asked for and heard for closed session. And once that's taken care of, Daniel and Nathan. Then we convene to closed session, and that is that private meeting that Dick Bray just alluded to, that there are only select items that in effect are confidential items that can be talked about in that setting. Quick overview: personnel, student expulsions. Alan, if you're able to scroll down a little bit, you can see that first item of business we'll be talking about will be pupil personnel and student discipline. And then in the second item here, we've got employee discipline, dismissal, release issues that are, again, confidential personnel issues that we can only talk in that setting. And then the third one would be labor negotiations, of course, and only the particular items under the Brown Act within those three areas. And there are a few others. Real property I'm thinking of, legal issues that we need to discuss. Mitch and Dick, what else am I missing?
I'll go through all of them.
Okay. Thanks, Dick.
Yeah.
We're going to cover that in
That's right.
the next section for Brown Act. We're going to spell it out a little bit more. So I think that'll answer a lot of your questions.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. So I won't go too far.
And just a reminder too, Nathan, that there's a booklet published by the Orange County Department of Education that we've sent to Ryan. I don't know, Ryan, if you've had a chance to share that with him, but that's a booklet that you get a chance to read and go through at your leisure, and I think it'll answer a lot of questions. I don't know that we ever become experts, but at least it'll give you a good background and working knowledge about what the Brown Act talks about. A lot of it will address closed session items, I think, that you had questions about.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. And Nancy did well to distribute that. And then Dennis Zimmerman, I want to make sure, did I see a hand raised? I don't see your face on my screen. Did you raise a hand?
Accidentally, that my speaking button and my raise hand button are right next to each other. So my
No problem, Desmond. Thanks. I just want to make sure I didn't walk right past you there. And then into open session here to Nathan and Daniel. So that's the setting that we would reconvene out in the public where everyone can participate. And you see from the Pledge of Allegiance, that would transpire. Now, this is a different setting. Typically, we don't have an oath of office in every meeting, right? It happens because the new board members, the two of you, will be sworn in and will recognize our two leaving board members, one of whom is with us, Kenny Funk, and then Dave Nielsen. And then after all the pomp and circumstance and our great appreciation for their tremendous work, then you, Nathan, and you, Daniel, will then take the oath of office. That oath of office will be administered, and then you will literally take those seats and we'll move forward with the rest of what would then be a more normal agenda where community comments from the public pertaining to items on the agenda or non-items on the agenda would be taken. The agenda would then be adopted, and then we'd move forward with two different types that we just need to talk about real quickly. We have consent motions, a course of, and Alan, if you continue down on the next page or two, you'll see a number of agenda items that are more common and don't require discussion that can be approved all in one lot, one large group in this consent format. And then after that, as you continue to scroll through, Alan, we'll have items that typically will lead to discussion and then action as is necessary within the given areas of student learning and support services, business support services, and then administratively right down there at the end. And so trying to be a little mindful of time, that's an overview there. I know Nathan and Daniel, you have seen our board meetings and participated on the other side of the table, if you will. That will serve you very, very well. But before I turn it back over to Mitch and Dick, I'll look to you, Nathan, as well as Daniel. Any questions that come to mind? Because Nathan, your question a moment ago was a great one, which we'll get to in a moment. But any others in the open session that not only I can answer, but these board members who've done it very well that can give you some advice for a standing regular meeting.
No, I just want to thank the board members that are leaving. Good job. I watched you guys perform really well on the board, and I hope that I can represent the board just as well as you guys did. So good job, guys. And as far as questions, I think it's just going to be a learning process as we go along. And I mean, we're going to learn it all today.
Yeah. I mean, so well said. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Nancy. Sorry.
May I let them know that to Daniel and Nathan, you will be receiving an email from me letting you know that the agenda has been posted. It will have your link to click in, log in. I will send you an email with your password. And then what we can do from there, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'll send you my cell phone number as well. If you have problems over the weekend, if you're trying to access it, you can text me, call me, whatever. I am available to help you.
Yeah, Nancy, that's so very well said. And I would just say before I turn this over, I don't know if I do anything well, Nathan and Daniel, but one toward the well side would be hiring outstanding people. And so when you look at Dennis, Alan, Robert, and Nancy, they are super at what they do. And so know that if you have any questions, just like Nancy said, about anything on that agenda, they are more than willing to answer any questions. And I try to be the same way. And you have our cell phones, you have my cell phone. I mean, at any point in time, Dick said it so well. And Dick, I was just amazed at how you chose Stater Brothers as your example, because that is our example up here, sure. Right? It's the perfect one.
Stater Brothers is...
We get a lot of work conducted completed at Stater Brothers, right? And so you just nailed it with that, Dick. And I love when you said that, because I know Daniel and Nathan have been to Stater Brothers, right? They know what that's like as well. And so when I say that, don't ever hesitate to ask any of us about anything so you feel informed, because it's such a challenging job. I mean, in most cases, it's a second job you're taking on, or third job when you count your families, right? So please let us help you by giving you what's needed to ensure that you feel comfortable to be able to conduct what you need to do in your leadership position. So Mitch, back to you. I thank you for letting me speak to those two pieces there.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can do it here. I need to get back to present now, entire screen. Allow. See, I'm a quick study there, Ryan.
Yes, you are.
All right, here it comes. All right, so now I'm presenting my screen, and now I'm going to be back to where all I can see is the PowerPoint. I can't see all your smiley faces. But here we go. Play from current.
You're doing well, Mitch. Yep, you got it. Well done.
So we're ready for the next. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing that. Thank you, board members, for sharing some of your secrets and tips as to how to prepare and get ready for board meetings, and preparing new board members for all the information they're going to be getting. And it's an ongoing experience that you'll learn throughout the time that you're on the board. So, and you never stop learning. With that being said, we're going to move into the Brown Act. And again, you do have a presentation or a book that was prepared by the Orange County Department of Education that Ryan will give you. But basically, all conduct of board business is governed by the Brown Act. And I'm going to let Dick take it from here.
Thank you. Well, the open meeting law, the Brown Act, it has actually been around for a long, long time. It was enacted in, I think, 1954. And it's been by the state legislature. The interesting thing about that is that they exempted themselves from the open meeting law. So they still routinely have secret meetings. So, but everybody else, all boards and commissions are under the Brown Act. And it starts out by saying, in enacting this chapter, the legislature finds and declares that the public commissions, boards, and councils, and the other public agencies in this state exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. And it's the intent of the law that their actions be taken openly and their deliberations be conducted openly. And that's why while they allow closed sessions, it's very prescribed and focused on just a few areas that you can do that. We'll get to those in a minute. And as Nancy said, the board agenda has to be on a regular meeting, has to be posted 72 hours beforehand. If it's a special meeting, you only need to post a special meeting 24 hours beforehand. The third type of meeting is an emergency meeting, and that needs to be like an hour beforehand. But it's got to be something really, really pressing. I know in the high desert, when I was in Hesperia, we had several emergency meetings, all related to fires, big fires, and we needed to get the board together to talk about things we had to do quickly. So in emergency situations, you can pull together the board and have a board meeting very quickly. So in addition to the posted agenda for regular meetings, a board packet, with the exception of closed session materials, needs to be made available to any inquiring members of the public. When a handout is presented to the board at a meeting that hasn't been included in the packet 72 hours earlier, then the public must be informed of its availability for their review upon request. And matters not posted on the agenda cannot be discussed nor acted upon by the board. There is one caveat to that. If an item comes up after the agenda is posted that can't wait to the next board agenda, there is a way that the board could add that item to the current board agenda. But it takes a 4/5 vote by the board to do that. And again, the criteria is it has to be something that can't wait to the next meeting, and it came up very late after the 72 hours. Okay, let's go on. Now, the latest change actually took effect in January of 2019. And if it talks about if you have a website, then you need to be posting your agenda on the homepage of your website, or at least a link to it on your homepage on your website. And it needs to be posted in an open format. January of 2019. Is retrievable, downloadable, and indexable, searchable, platform independent and machine readable, available to the public free of charge and without any restrictions. In other words, if someone is looking for your board agenda for the upcoming meeting, they should be able to go to your website. On the homepage, there should be a link to your next agenda or your agendas, and they would be able to pull that up and print it off if they wanted to. Now, the Brown Act requires that the public is afforded time at all regular meetings for comment on non-agendized items. Also, agendized items, well, let me just say, on non-agendized items, those have to be comments that are on something that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. They can't talk about zoning laws or things that you have no control over. So it has to be something that you actually have jurisdiction over, that may not be on the agenda, but they want to talk about it. And then public comments for agendized items and special board meetings may be made after the item is introduced, but before the board acts on the item. Or they could do it at the common comment time. Either way. The public is afforded time for comment on closed session items before the board goes into closed session. And the public comments portion of the agenda is not intended for the board to conduct a dialogue with the public. Rather, it's for the board to hear the public. And this is really important. The Brown Act makes the point that the meeting, the board meeting, is a meeting of the board just held in public with an opportunity for you to hear input from the community before you act on items. But it's your meeting. It's not an open meeting. Okay? It's a meeting of the board held in public and with a provision for public input. But it's not like a just wide open meeting. Okay? So there is a difference. And that's why you can control it in terms of setting reasonable times for people to speak. The most common is, 3 to 5 minutes, depending on, and you can change it if you have a room full of speakers. You can say instead of 5 minutes, you have 3 minutes, those kinds of things. Because it's your meeting, you just have provision for hearing comments. Okay? And that's why you don't want to start discussions with a public speaker. Okay, go to the next one, Mitch. I don't know how what your constituency looks like that speaks at meetings, but if you have non-English speaking folks that want to speak, the Brown Act says that when limiting time for public comment, the board shall provide at least twice the allotted time to a member of the public who utilizes a translator. So if someone is standing next to them and translating their comments into English, you need to give them more time, like twice as much time. Just makes sense to do that. This shall not apply to the board if the board hears the translation simultaneously through translation equipment. Now, closed session. Closed session items are the only items exempt from being open to the public as described in the main body of the Brown Act. And here are the areas that you can talk about and have a closed session about. One is with real property negotiators. And again, you don't want to, these are all things that there would be a big downside if you did in public. If you are looking to buy property, it may be a site for a new school. Gosh, if the person who owns that property could listen into your negotiations about how much you're prepared to offer eventually, you'd never get the best price. So it just makes perfect sense that would be a closed session item. Same thing with a conference with the labor negotiators. When you're talking about how much raises for employees, that's a negotiation and ongoing negotiations, and you as a board would give parameters for your negotiators. And of course, you don't want to do that in public, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a negotiation. So that's where you do it in closed session. And then meeting with the legal counsel. Now you can meet with your district's legal counsel for two reasons. One, existing litigation, and second, for anticipated litigation. Third is any liability claims. You can look at those and discuss those and what you might do with those in closed session. Any threats to public services or facilities you can talk about in closed session. Public employees' appointments or public employee performance evaluations are both allowed in closed session. Public employee discipline, dismissal, and release. Specific complaints or charges against an employee you would hear in closed session. Student expulsion appeals and interdistrict transfer appeals you all do in closed session. Go ahead and go to the next one, Mitch. Once you take action in closed session, you need to report it out. Generally report it out when you go into open session. And there are some caveats with that. One is confidentiality of information. For instance, if you take adverse action on a student discipline, expulsion, for instance, you wouldn't list the student's name. You would list it by student number. Same thing with an employee. If you take adverse action against an employee, when you report it out, you report it by their employee number rather than their name. Okay, so you keep that confidentiality in those cases.
And Dick, if I could just chime in, you would not use a student ID number or an employee ID number. It would be a number that you would assign, and sometimes you can refer to the date and number 1, 2, 3. But it's important that you understand, and I think Ryan, you probably know this, is you wouldn't actually use a student ID number or an employee social security number or ID number, something that could be traced back to the student or the employee, just for a matter of reference. And I'm sure, Ryan, you know that. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. So, in regards to like disciplining or termination of an employee, is the board involved in that, or wouldn't that be a management right? Like they're handling business how they should handle as administration, and are we going to be involved in every single disciplinary action or termination of every employee in the district?
Yes, because, and the reason it would take a vote of the board in those instances, Nathan, is because you're the employer of record. And so even though management is going to bring you the case and bring you the recommendation, it would still have to be a vote of the board.
And that wouldn't mean, Nathan, that you would be involved in the investigation process or the documentation process. Basically, all that happens is your management team will take care of that, and they will have done all the investigation. They will put together reports. They will bring to you a recommendation that the board must take action on, again, because you're the employer of record.
Yeah. The only other thing to know about reporting out from closed session is that there is one unusual situation, and that's where, for instance, if you're negotiating a contract, if you've been negotiating, say, with your teachers union, and at the table you've agreed, both sides have agreed, okay, this is what we're going to do. Well, now the negotiators on each side have to go back. The management folks, the superintendent is going to come to you and say, this is what we agreed to at the table, and then the board would have to agree. to that for that to happen. And the same thing with the teachers union. They would have to go to the teachers and they have a vote that if they approve that contract. So if it comes to you first, if it comes to the board first, and the board agrees, you don't report that out because it's not a done deal. The teachers haven't agreed yet. So you don't report that out because it's not a complete deal. Can you see that, how that works? And then once they agree, then if anybody asks, you can say, yes, it's been approved.
Yeah, okay. Totally
Now,
understand.
that works pretty much for any contract. So if you're contracting for a service or something and you approve the contract, if it hasn't been approved by the other side, then you don't have to report it out.
Okay.
But that's the only kind of strange thing that comes with the reporting out.
And typically what will happen is it'll go back to the teachers, they'll do their vote. And then if they approve it, then Ryan would put it on the agenda to have that approved in an open session. So that at some point in time, it will be approved in open session, but ultimately the board must approve it. But that's typically the steps that are taken is the teachers will vote on it. If they approve it, then it goes on the agenda and then the board takes formal action at that time.
Right.
Well, it just acknowledges that it's a done deal.
Yeah, acknowledges it's been done.
Yeah. Now, if interestingly, if for some reason, if the teachers union, for instance, acted very quickly and agreed, and then it came to the board and you agreed, then you would have to report it out because then both sides have agreed. It's a done deal. And so you would, if you're the second body, approving it, then when it's a complete deal, then you have to report it out. Okay, let's go on. All matters discussed in closed session must remain confidential. And folks, this is huge, and it's a concern with every board member because you're going to get asked. You're going to get asked what goes on in closed session. What happened about this? We saw on the agenda, you're disciplining an employee. Who was it? What'd they do? You can't tell them. So you need to understand that the Brown Act disallows you from talking about that and requires you to be confidential. And so you need to explain that to people that you can't break that confidence. And there are consequences if you do. Violation of this section may be addressed by the use of such remedies as are currently available by law, including, but not limited to, injunctive relief to prevent the disclosure of confidential information prohibited by this section, disciplinary action against an employee who has been willfully disclosed confidential information in violation. And by the way, you are not, as a board member, you are not legally an employee of the district. You're a member of the board, which is different. And referral of a member of the legislative body, a board member, who has willfully disclosed confidential information in violation of this section to the grand jury. So it really is a big deal that you've got to keep confidences of closed session actions and discussions. So closed session do's and don'ts: discuss only appropriately agendized matters. Agendize only those matters that are exempt from being open to the public. Don't discuss closed session matters outside of closed session. And keep all confidential matters confidential.
Loose lips sink ships.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
it.
Well said.
And interestingly, when you think about this, you need to hold yourself accountable for this and be good about it. But also the board needs to hold every member accountable for staying within the boundaries of the Brown Act. So if you're in a closed session and somebody brings up something that is really not a closed session item or hasn't been noticed as a closed session item, feel free to speak up and say, "Gosh, guys, I don't think this is something we should be talking about in closed session." So everybody needs to be responsible for kind of watching out for those boundaries and staying within the boundaries of the Brown Act for closed sessions. Okay, Mitch?
Something you guys might cover. I don't know. I keep doing this. I ask a question and then you cover it later. But in some of my researching, we're not supposed to collaborate outside of meetings also, right?
Right.
That's
That's covered
That's
on
what
this
we're going
next
to talk about right now.
next slide.
Okay.
Good question. That's perfect. I'm
Perfect
glad you
question.
brought that up.
Okay. I'll try to be quiet.
That's all right. Great
Yeah,
question.
no. That's good. That's called a serial meeting, and serial meetings are prohibited by the Brown Act. And so, if where it becomes a problem is you're a 5-member board, so 3 is consensus. I mean, 3 members could make it happen at a board meeting. So all of your discussion is supposed to take place within the boundaries of an agendized board meeting, not outside the board meeting. So the Brown Act doesn't want you talking outside of that board meeting, a regularly agendized board meeting, to come to a consensus on what to do about something. It's got to be done within the meeting, not outside. And of course, if 3 people talk, that creates consensus. So in a 5-member board, can 2 board members talk outside? Yes. But then if one of the two talks to one other person, that's a serial meeting. So you've got to be really good about that. So it says in the Brown Act, a majority of the members of a legislative body shall not, outside a meeting authorized by this chapter, use a series of communications of any kind, directly or through intermediaries, to discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item of business that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body. Okay, so you've got to be good about that.
With that, I think Mr. Flores had a question. He raised his hand.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of forgetting already. It took a minute. I should have written it down, but if I remember, I'll raise my hand again.
Okay.
Oh wait, I remember. Okay, so I believe someone had mentioned that if they have something that they're going to talk about in the open session, they try to bring it up to Dr. Holman before that meeting with just him. If that's the case, do you need to bring that up to the other board members saying, I'm going to bring this question up to Dr. Holman, or they just find out right there in the meeting as well?
Yes.
Yes, it's best that you just bring it up at the meeting. The important thing is that your superintendent knows you're going to bring it up. And then when you are in the board meeting, you'll bring it up so that all the board members will hear your thoughts.
Okay.
And with social media, this makes it so much easier to have a serial meeting and get in trouble. If you do something just like a reply to all, or retweeting something that one of the other board members sends you, it's just so easy then to to send that information to a third board member, you've got to keep that in mind for everything you do, and be real good about not doing that. The court cases that we've seen that have come about in the last few years have almost always been serial meeting kinds of problems and involving email or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or just things that have been done innocently, without thinking much about it, but under the definition committed a serial meeting. So just be aware of that and just be really good. Always keep that in mind. Open meeting issues. School board meetings must be open to the public. Fair notice must be given in advance so that members of the public may attend and comment on the agenda and related matters. And electronic communications that circumvent this access, whether intentional or not, violates the Brown Act. You guys do it well. You shouldn't have any trouble with that. And Orange County Superintendent of the Schools is kind of unusual in having their own legal department. And one of the things that they do for superintendents in Orange County, and both Mitch and I have been superintendents in Orange County, and they stay on top of things really well that we need to know about. And one of the things that they are really good about is producing, like Brown Act, a very comprehensive Brown Act handbook, and keeping it up to date. And their latest one is from January 2018. And it's really good. And we gave that to Ryan, and he has that for you to share with you. And I would hope that you would take some time and go through it, because it's, I've just given you an overview. It really is very much more detailed, and I think you'll enjoy it. The other thing that you can also get Brown Act information from CSBA. They have the Brown Act School Boards and Open Meeting Laws booklet. A lot of times other information on the Brown Act that you find online, for instance, will be just the Brown Act, just what the Brown Act says in legislation. But a lot of what happens with the Brown Act is also through court cases. And so the Orange County one is really good about bringing in all of the court cases that have added things to the Brown Act. And so that's the one we've given you and would recommend.
The other source, Ryan, and you may already be aware, there's the Small School Districts Association, SSDA, which is a state association for small school districts. They have all kinds of information, whether it be Brown Act information or for information for board policies, administrative regulations. I don't know if you're a member of that or have been involved with it, but we have other districts that are part of that association, and they are a tremendous support, and they provide terrific resources for you to use and use that will support you in the district.
Yeah, Mitch.
One question I was going to ask: do we have access to this PowerPoint, or can you guys? I know it's yours, or I don't know if you guys whoever built it, but maybe just send that to us so we could overview it again.
Absolutely. I think, Ryan, you have the PDF version, or you can make the PDF version of it so you can share that, right?
Yeah.
Sure can. We sure will. Great question there, Nathan. We'll certainly make sure that happens. And just two items real quickly, Dick, but do you want me to wait until you get through this piece? They are Brown Act.
We're done.
We're done.
Okay. Thank you. I'll add one more resource for Nathan and Daniel to consider, and certainly look to our board members who might want to speak to it, and that's Masters in Governance, right? Sometimes referred to as MIG, just because Masters in Governance, that's the acronym. We use a few, right, Nathan? You had referenced that before. We use a few at education for sure. Please know that'll be available to both of you. I've been through that process, and again, I think who can speak better are the board members. Any of our board members want to speak to Masters in Governance, its value, particularly to Brown Act, and maybe even beyond?
I found it very helpful, and I highly recommend it. I think that Member Hernandez is our most recent graduate, so if you'd like to say a few words about the value of that program.
Yeah, absolutely. That program, it's a series of 5 courses, and it goes over in depth many of the aspects of what we do. I just graduated. The last class, MIG 5 or course 5, was a virtual presentation, which I did not find as engaging as the in-person ones. The first 4, I did 2 classes back to back, so a Friday, Saturday combo on the first 4 courses. And then COVID hit, and my final course was canceled until just this November. But the in-person ones get really engaging with other districts, and you learn a lot more than the information presented, because hearing other people is an excellent part of that education process.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, highly recommend the MIG courses.
Yeah, thank you to both of you. And I just add that, oh, sorry, Kenny, go ahead there, Kenny.
I'll just real quick. There's other opportunities to kind of be engaged as well. One is you may choose to get information from the Colorado or the California School Board Association. They'll send you information. And also, I would highly recommend attending, when they have them in person again, the California State School Board conference. It's a great networking tool, but it also is a wonderful chance to take several different courses on a wide range of topics. And I think that's a great way to kind of find out what's going on, not only in your district, but in the state, and a chance to pipe into what's going on with other board members.
And Kenny, as a follow-up to the CSBA, I think they typically hold those conferences right at the very end of November, first week of December. Typically, there's one held in Southern California, which is in San Diego. The other one, then they go back and forth, and then the other one the next year might be held in San Francisco, so the Northern California. I have also found those to be very helpful. It gives you an opportunity to network and talk with other board members from other districts. Excellent opportunity. They also hold a variety of different workshops with different themes. So there might be a theme that this is particularly helpful for those that work in small, that are governing, come from governing boards that are working in small school districts. But they've got a lot of different legal things, curricular and instruction things. But I found it very helpful. And typically, as a superintendent, I would go with my board, and we came away with a lot of valuable information. So good point on that.
Agreed. And it's paid for. I mean, it's something that it's not out of pocket for you. So I would highly recommend it. I got a lot out of it myself.
Yes.
Yes. And I've had board members that have gone to the National School Boards Association conference and found that really interesting, because they get to hear from and talk to people that are board members in other states, and find out how it works in other states. And not everybody is set up like California, and it's kind of a learning experience. It kind of broadens their view of what it is to be a board member, and found it very interesting.
And I'll tell you, just such great information and resources, I believe, Nathan and Danny, you just got from your colleagues here, and as well as Dick and Mitch here. So know that know that Nancy does a great job of, I would say, overseeing that, right? When the conference comes up, we'll prepare for that. We have, much like was mentioned, I think, by Mitch, that we've gone as a team, if you will, right? A team meaning superintendent and the board members to those conferences. This is the first year we haven't in a while just because of the conditions, right? It was just a unique situation. But know that that's available. And then also Masters of Governance, I just want to reinforce, you heard Marcus say he's ended his second year and he's just ending that process. It took me close to 2 years to get done. Don't feel like you've got to rush, and if you're interested in it, oh boy, I've got to get it done in a weekend. I mean, it's a process. So we'll work with you on your timelines there. But I just love how we got a lot of input right here. You've got some outstanding resources at your disposal, just so you can feel comfortable with what fits for all of you. And then, Dick, if you don't mind, if I can go backward just real quickly before we move forward, I don't want to take all our time here, but I think there's a place where you and Mitch might be able to help us. We've got that unique meeting, that's the oath of office for our new board members, of course, that happens in open session. Closed session for us traditionally is at 5 o'clock. How is that handled with new board members? Are they able to sit in on closed session before taking the oath of office, given that they are operating under the Brown Act, or is that not the case?
Yes, and board members, once their election is certified, which has already happened, and before they actually take the oath of office, they're under the Brown Act. But you can invite them in to view the closed session before they take the oath of office. That's up to you. Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Dick. I'll tell you, our practice has been not, and that doesn't mean that it was correct, but that's been our practice. I'll tell you, just well before me, and here, that's what we inherited. But I would like to invite them in. So it is okay. I'm hearing you say to have 7 board members in there for a closed session for that one time.
The caveat is they wouldn't vote.
Right.
Okay.
You're inviting them in to see the process and understand what's going on and be a part of that. But they would actually take their seats as far as a voting member, even though they're under the Brown Act. But they would take their seats as a voting member once they take the oath. Now, the other way to do it, I've seen districts that will swear them in privately at the beginning of the closed session when you open your board meeting, but before you actually go into closed session, and then do it again in open session. So they actually take it twice. The other one is just to do it in more public recognition. So if you wanted them to actually be seated, you could swear them in before you go into closed session. But it's up to you. You can do it either way.
All right. Really helpful information. I appreciate that. And I certainly, at its minimum, I think it's important that they at least witness what's going on and they're in there. So just give them another opportunity to make a good transition based on learning from, the 3 great board members we have here and the other 2. So thank you for that feedback. Thanks, Mitch. I'm sorry for stopping the momentum here, but appreciate you letting us ask that question.
Ryan, this next section is, you wanted to quickly just provide an overview of the governance handbook. I can put it up real quick if you want, or do you want to have me stop presenting? I mean, I know you want to do a quick overview, and then we also have to I want to talk quickly about the superintendent evaluation process.
Yes, thanks so very much there, Mitch. And
you want me to put it up? Is that all right?
If you've got it, that's wonderful. Thank you, Mitch. And I'll be really quick here because I want to make sure you get to that last piece and you can wrap up nicely. I think you and Dick have just done wonderfully well in terms of managing the time here. Want to keep ourselves to that noon ending place. The governance handbook that dates back to Luke Onaveros, my predecessor, just a long time. I'll call him friend of Snowline and just a tremendous educator. I think many of us who or all of us who know him, just really value him. He had the foresight to establish the governance handbook, and it was actually done through California School Boards Association and expertise we brought in from that organization that's already been spoken to very well, Nathan and Daniel, to build a document to guide the governance in a way that's more explicit and more focused around what's most important to the board members and Snowline as a whole. And so then, Mitch, if you're able to scroll down, what you can see here is a document that is a living one. And what it allows for here, and I think, the table of contents will serve us well. It defines the unity of purpose, the roles and responsibilities, what a positive team culture around governance is, with norms as well as guidelines, and also the necessary protocols and processes and procedures that remind ourselves as a team how we function. And I was just really proud to have been part and witness to it when it was developed originally in 2014. I bring up that date because on a yearly basis now, Daniel and Nathan, we review it. And we review it and then make adjustments as is appropriate, because the board goals, as you can see under the unity purpose, are in there. And this is where we'll make a connection, because Mitch and Dick are going to do us some great work that Ralph Baker, another one, you heard that name referenced today, another wonderful superintendent in our high desert area who is just like the two of them, consultant we've worked with, had made great progress in taking us through this up until March, and then we put on hold all the adjustments that we were going to make. And you might say, well, gosh, Ron, I'd like to see the finished document. Well, I think it's actually not a bad outcome, because what we'll be able to do is pick up where we as a team left off and be able to move this cause forward in the ways with the new board that will support what I would say the existing board's efforts to make Snowline a better place in terms of defining how we govern most effectively. So it's a quick flyover. I know it might seem, if I can again steal Kenny's reference in your profession there, Nathan, I know it's a fire hose a bit here, but I will say though that honestly, this document to me is powerful because of who and what's behind it. It's really the heart and soul behind all of you to define how we govern. And that's why you'll see highlights and so forth, because they were put on hold and we didn't want to move forward in the virtual format, because we felt this was so important when we needed to get face to face to make sure that we agreed upon everything that we need to agree upon. So with that, again, I'll just turn it over to Christina and Marcus and Kenny. Any quick comments about the governance handbook that we've been operating with and where we've left it for our new curators, if you will, our new board members who will be able to be the next guardians?
Well, I, for one, am excited to revisit that, and I'm happy that our new board members will be able to participate in that practice and provide input for the goals and so forth.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I'd echo that excitement for what's to come of this handbook. I think we're doing some great stuff, and getting the two new members on board, and part of that, it's going to be great.
Perfect. Anything else, Brian?
Thanks, Kenny, for that thumbs up. And I would just say, I'd end by saying, Mitch, that what I'm really proud of here, too, you can see the document's not more than, I think it's 9 pages or something. And I've always argued that, there's some complex concepts in here. And getting to simplicity is really a complex task. And I think your predecessors have done very well in a very small document, gotten in a fairly simple format, complex governing structures to a place where we can actually remember them and use them effectively. So thanks for letting me, share all of that. And I guess real quickly, Daniel and Nathan, any questions on this piece, knowing that you'll get this and we'll be moving forward with it? Okay, cool. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to working with you. I think we've set some dates, February and March, Ryan, with regard to talking about what are our core values, what do we stand for, taking those core values, coming up with some belief statements and turning them into some goals, board goals, district goals, and then moving forward together. It's a process that we look forward to working together with you in the spring, or February, March. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mitch. I'll turn that back over to you. I know you're doing a great job navigating the screen here.
I'm learning as we go along. The last slide, basically, Dick, is we were going to touch
Right.
just to touch briefly about the superintendent evaluation process.
And we can do that in the last 7 minutes.
There you go. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, we'll stay on. I'll be very, very short.
Yes. Folks,
one of the things that, as we've worked with boards and superintendents all over the county, we were working to try and get them to build trust and find ways to build trust. And our ultimate goal was we'd like to see superintendents have longer tenures in a district, because it takes being there a while to get things done. And when you're turning over superintendents all the time, you don't make a lot of progress with students, and it's really a problem. One of the things that we have started and found that it's probably the most successful thing that we have done to help with board and superintendent longevity is to do an informal evaluation 3 or 4 times a year, where we come in and we sit down with you and the superintendent in closed session, because it's noticed as evaluation. And we have an informal evaluation, and we basically, it's kind of open, and there's no forms involved or anything to fill out, or no records made. It's a facilitated discussion on what have you done the last 3 or 4 months? How's it gone the last 3 or 4 months from the superintendent? And then asking the board, what are the irritants? Are there little irritations between the board and the superintendent that have come up? Did Ryan do something that you wished he hadn't? Did he not do something that you wished he would have? Any little irritations that have happened, let's get them out in the open. Let's clear the air. Misunderstandings, let's get that out. Miscommunications, let's talk about that. Let's fix them. And so nothing builds up. So by the time you get to the formal evaluation at the end of the year, which you always do anyway, hopefully things won't come up in that have been brewing for the whole 12 months over that evaluation period. That we take care of those little irritants and get them out in the open and discuss them and get them resolved like 3 or 4 months at a time during the year with these informal evaluations. It really works, and it really works well. And the districts and boards that we've done it with, they love it. They really love it. They see the value in it, and they've all said it really helps.
And it's also an opportunity, Ryan, for you to sort of share what kinds of progress have you made? What are things you're proud of? What are some next steps? So it really gives you an opportunity to interact with the board, and for the board to ask questions and talk about progress being made, the positive things happening, where we're heading. We're making good progress. We need to do a little bit more of this and a little bit less of this. So it's just an opportunity to touch bases so that it's ongoing. It's an ongoing process rather than a summative final process at the very end after the year's been completed.
I would just like to say that I think that Dr. Holman and the board have a very good rapport, and so there are open lines of communication, but I do see value in this, and I'm wondering if there is a template that you have that we can look at, because we are just staying on track with an annual evaluation. which is very comprehensive. It has a 360-degree survey included and so forth. So I'm really pleased with the development of that tool. But I think to have an ongoing conversation throughout the year is a good idea.
Yeah, and having it facilitated really helps too. It just keeps it in the parameters of it, being civil and being appropriate, and so we're happy to provide that.
And Christine, in answer to your question, we do have a format that we use, but that doesn't mean you couldn't use your own format. The important thing is you're having discussion, informing throughout the year, and because Ryan and I have talked about the evaluation process, and you do appear to have a process that's working for you. So that doesn't mean throw that out. That means how can we have discussions throughout the year to sort of talk about these things, which makes the evaluation process more rich. It makes it a process that we're learning and growing together, and it keeps us all on the same page. But we do have a format. We could share that with Ryan, and we can share that even with you as we talk about goals and objectives and all those things when we meet together, hopefully in February and March.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. And Mitch, sorry, Christina, go ahead.
I was just saying thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mitch and Dick, I should have probably shared that I did share, what Christine is talking about, our process. And I think, is it fair to say that you were both appreciative of the, of the process that they've put together? It's fairly, extensive and in a real positive way, right? And get some depth of feedback, right?
Yeah, and I think the important things that you've got a process that's working, so continue with the process, but maybe add to some informal discussion along the way, which I said, which coming back to the point, the purpose of evaluation is one of growth, one of learning, one of communication, which is, some of the things we've talked about earlier today. That's the purpose of it. And together you're better. So have those discussions throughout the year. Share the things you're proud of. Keep moving forward together. If there's things that are irritants, as Dick said, then bring those up. But have open, honest discussions along the way so that you continue on with a great working relationship that in the end benefits the purpose that you're there, and that's for your kids and the staff and the community that you work with.
And it builds trust.
Absolutely. Any other comments, Dick or Ryan, on the eval process?
No, thank you. I appreciate the time on that.
Okay. Well, we did it, Ryan.
12 noon.
We 12 noon. We stayed within the timeline. Any other thoughts or comments you'd like to end with, Ryan or board members?
I'll go first. Let them go last if that's okay. They'll have better comments. I just have to say, you mentioned something, Mitch, and that was together is, obviously better, right? That's a term that we're very familiar with here. I think together truly is better. And I'm just really proud of all that was accomplished here today. We've got a wonderful board, and we're going to have to say goodbye to Kenny and Dave, and that's got, bittersweet, right? Because of their outstanding service to this community. On the other side of the coin, we're very hopeful too that that bittersweet experience becomes sweet to the extent that we've got Nathan and Daniel, I think, just very well poised to just pick up with the great work that Kenny and Dave have done for us, not to mention the other three and Christina, Marcus, and Steve. And so I really felt that today. And I just walk away feeling extremely excited about next steps. And that's not to forget you, Mitch, and you, Dick. You did this very well. That's a lot of information. Again, complex, being made simple as best you can. Well done by both of you. We're so appreciative. I'm looking forward to February as well as March. So those are my quick comments there. Thanks for letting me share that. But there might be some others here.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here and welcome to our new board members. Looking forward to the oath of office on Tuesday. And thank you to Dr. Hovey and Mr. Brady for facilitating this process.
Our pleasure.
It's been, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you have a great team. And I'd like to compliment Ryan also for the fact your executive cabinet was part of this process. Obviously, they're an important part of your team, so kudos to you and your team. You've got an outstanding team with a great board, 2 new board members coming in that's going to complement what's already been done. You'll be moving forward together. Administrative assistant, I mean, you have a well-rounded team. So thank you all for being part of this process. I know that you have lots on your plate, lots of things to do, and it's very, very tough to pull out 3 hours of your time. But let me just say, from Dick and I perspective, thank you very much for taking the time to be a part of this process. And we really are looking forward to continuing our work together with you in February and March.
Yes.
Yep. I just got 2 pieces of advice for the new board members. One is, if you look at the people on this call, you've got well over 100 years of educational experience. Use them. You're not out there by yourself. Okay. They've answered questions you've had. They've seen things happen that you think is unique to you. I assure you it probably is not. COVID was, but we got through together. And just the amount of experience they're going to have and be able to answer your questions, use that opportunity. Second, when you get an invitation from Mr. Miller or Mr. Zimmerman or Bob or somebody to go out into the schools or to an opportunity to see the kids in action, do what you can to get there. If you want to know the pulse of what's going on in your school district, watch teachers in action.
Yes.
Watch principals in action, okay? You're going to get paperwork. You're going to get data. You're going to get reports. You're going to get inundated with numbers. That's great. But you have to see what's going on in the district to know what's going on in the district. So go out there, get the sense of what's going on. That'll help you make decisions.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. Powerful advice.
Excellent points. Any comments by others? Okay, so that being
I
said,
just have a quick question. For the board meeting, dress code stuff, is it like tie and a coat, or just a tie, or just a collar?
And normally
it's severely out of place.
Yeah, Daniel, normally we've been tuxedos for, but COVID-19
on the first one. I'll make sure to go rent one tonight.
Yeah, no, you don't have to. COVID-19 has backed us down, but I will say this, Daniel, we have never explicitly said what our dress code is, but I would argue that it's professional, professional, but there's also a level of comfort that folks seem to have. So to that end, I think you see someone like Kenny, right? He's right above you. So I just think of Kenny. Kenny, you dress that way often and always look good and present yourself very well. Would you agree with that, Kenny?
Well, as a camp director, I don't get an excuse to wear a tie much. So if I have to wear a tie every, twice a month, I take that opportunity. So otherwise, it's, I agree. It's professional casual. A jacket and a tie is nice. A sweater and a tie is nice. I think that, remember, you're representing district. And I think you're representing yourself when you do that. So dressing to the part.
Okay, so double Windsor, single Windsor, we'll just that part's negotiable. Okay.
Bench cuff.
Fine. Yeah.
any
Thanks,
other questions or discussion?
I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. You guys helped with some of my fear of failure, lowering the anxiety a little bit. But that's also a good motivator to be on the stuff. But anyways, thanks a lot, guys.
You'll have a special purpose here, Nathan.
Thank you. Mr. Chacon?
Yeah, just real quick for the new board members, just be on the lookout the day before the board meeting, usually in the afternoon. I will send out the calendar invite for the following day. So just wanted to give you guys a little bit of time frame so you're not frantically looking for it. I like to keep it at the top of your inbox. So it'll usually go out, 1, 2 o'clock on the Monday prior to the board meeting. You'll get 2 invites. You'll get a closed session invite and an open session invite. And we will start off our board meeting in open session always. So always start off with the open session invite. And once we get open session going, then we'll transfer over into that closed session. But just be on the lookout Monday afternoons for 2 invites from me. We'll be starting an open session. Thanks, guys.
Beautiful.
Thank you for that. Mr. Miller?
Yes, thank you, President Behringer. Just to our new board members, we've got a special request from Ashley Alvarado, who's part of our team here in Student Learning and Support Services. I don't know if she had the opportunity to reach out, but we do a monthly page in the Mountaineer Progress, and we're kind of focusing on the upcoming year, the new year, new hope and whatnot. And we'd like to highlight both of you as the newest members of our board. So I think we're going to try to rally up a couple pictures, photographs of each of you, and also to ask you to, if you'd be so kind to write a short paragraph just on who you are and you know what you aspire to accomplish or what you're excited about in regards to your new board member role. So that would be helpful. We don't have to get our final draft done until Monday afternoon and sent off to the Mountaineer Progress. So if you could send those to me between now and then, that would be great. If we could get them by Monday morning at the latest, that would be very helpful in regards to our layout, so we can make sure everything's dialed in and ready to go.
Who do you want us to send it to?
You can just send it directly to me. My email is Allen with two L's, ALLAN _Miller at snowlineschools.com. Thank you.
Okay, any other business? There being none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn the meeting.
And a second?
I'll second.
I'm grateful you're here to provide a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all.